The universe holds trillions of planets within its grasp, enough for millions of civilizations to rise by simple mathematical probability alone. Yet after decades of careful listening and scanning billions of distant worlds with our most advanced instruments, in 2026, there is only absolute silence. We find no radio signals, no megastructures blocking the light of stars, and absolutely nothing to suggest we are not alone in this dark void. The universe appears to be truly empty of intelligent life, and the reason for this profound solitude is likely terrifying to contemplate. A great filter likely destroys every advanced species before they can spread, leaving only the sound of their ghosts drifting in the cosmic wind. We stand upon our small blue rock and gaze upward into the velvet night, expecting to see a crowded ocean of lights and movement. We intuitively feel that space should be teeming with travelers, with ancient empires that have conquered the distance between the stars and tamed the energy of galaxies. The sheer age of the cosmos suggests that someone should have arisen billions of years before us and spread their influence across the sky. Yet the stars remain distinct and lonely points of light, unconnected by any web of commerce or communication that we can detect. It is as if we have walked into a grand and festive banquet hall, only to find the tables set, but the chairs completely empty. The silence that presses against our atmosphere is not merely a lack of noise, but a heavy and suffocating weight that grows with every passing year. We have built great ears of metal and placed them in the driest deserts to catch the faintest whisper from the heavens. We have launched golden mirrors into the cold Lagrange points to taste the chemical air of worlds that orbit red dwarf stars. Every instrument we possess is tuned to the frequency of life, waiting for a pattern that does not belong to nature. But the universe refuses to speak back to us, offering only the static hiss of dying stars and the cold radiation of the background. This brings us to the most unsettling realization of our time, a paradox that haunts the waking hours of astronomers and philosophers alike. If the stage is so vast and the props are so plentiful, why has no other actor stepped out from behind the curtain? The numbers tell us that we should be surrounded by neighbors, yet our senses tell us that we are marooned on a desert island. This contradiction is known as the Fermi paradox, and it is the shadow that hangs over every optimistic calculation of alien life. It forces us to ask whether we are the first to arrive, or perhaps the last to survive in a dangerous cosmos. Consider the sheer scale of the galaxy we call home, a swirling spiral containing up to 400 billion distinct stars. Even if only a tiny fraction of these suns possess planets capable of harboring liquid water, the potential for life is staggering. The Drake equation attempts to organize our ignorance, multiplying probabilities to estimate the number of active civilizations currently sharing our galaxy. Even with the most conservative numbers, the equation suggests there should be thousands of voices calling out across the Milky Way right now. Yet the silence remains unbroken, a flat and endless line on our oscilloscopes that refuses to jump with the rhythm of intelligence. We drift through this silence like a ship lost at sea, searching the horizon for a lighthouse or the smoke of another vessel. We have scanned the dense star fields of the galactic center, where ancient suns are packed so closely that night never truly falls. We have listened to the pulsars and the quasars, hoping that some advanced engineer has modulated their power to send a beacon. we have looked for the waste heat of Dyson spheres, massive shells that a hungry civilization might build to capture a star's energy. But the infrared surveys of 2025 show no such anomalies, only the natural and chaotic heat of dust and gas. The universe looks exactly as it would if it were completely devoid of any technology other than our own primitive machines. This observation is terrifying because it implies that the hurdle to becoming a spacefaring species is far higher than we dare to imagine. It suggests that there is a bottleneck in the evolution of life, a great filter that strictly limits the number of survivors. This filter is a mechanism of destruction or stagnation, so powerful that it scrubs the galaxy clean of intelligence time and time again. We must wonder if this filter is a challenge we have already overcome, or a catastrophe that still lies in our future. Perhaps the spark of life itself is the filter, an event so incredibly rare that it has happened only once in 13 billion years. It is possible that the chemical accident that created the first replicating molecule on Earth was a miracle of statistical improbability. If this is true, then we are the lonely kings of a dead universe, the only consciousness capable of observing the stars. We would be the universe waking up to itself for the very first time, a singular eye opening in the vast dark. This thought is both arrogant and deeply lonely, placing the burden of meaning entirely upon our fragile shoulders. But there is another possibility, one that chills the blood and makes the silence of the night sky feel predatory and threatening. What if life is common and intelligence arises frequently on the wet and warm worlds that orbit stable yellow stars? What if the filter lies ahead of us, a trap that snaps shut just as a civilization begins to reach for the stars? This would mean that the silence is not empty, but essentially a graveyard of cultures that destroyed themselves before they could be heard. It implies that technological advancement carries a self-destruct mechanism, a fatal flaw that is inherent to intelligence itself. We look at our own history and see the weapons we have built, the climate we have altered, and the artificial minds we are birthing. We see how close we have come to extinguishing our own light during the brief moments we have possessed nuclear fire. It is easy to imagine that every civilization reaches this same precipice, where their power outpaces their wisdom by a fatal margin. Perhaps the universe is silent because it is efficient at removing those who grow too loud and too dangerous for their own good. The great filter might be the inevitable tendency of complex systems to collapse under the weight of their own complexity. As we stare into the deep field images returned by the James Webb Space Telescope, we see galaxies that existed near the dawn of time. We see billions of years of history laid out before us, a tapestry of creation that spans the observable universe. Yet in all that time, across all those uncountable worlds, we see no sign of an expanding galactic empire. We see no grabby aliens who have converted the matter of their galaxies into computers or habitats or interstellar ships. If such aggressive expansion were possible, it would have consumed the view long ago, turning the stars into mere fuel. The fact that the universe still looks natural suggests that expansion is either impossible or that no one survives long enough to attempt it. This leads us to the dark forest hypothesis, a concept that transforms the cosmos from a playground into a terrifying hunting ground. Imagine that the universe is full of civilizations, but they are all hiding in the dark, terrified of being seen. They know that to reveal one's location is to invite destruction from a more advanced and paranoid predator. In this scenario, the silence we hear is not an absence of life, but a disciplined and fearful quiet maintained for survival. We are the foolish children shouting in a dangerous forest, unaware that the wolves are listening to our every broadcast. We have sent maps of our location and recordings of our voices out into the void on the golden records of the Voyager probes. We have beamed high-power radio messages toward clusters of stars, inviting anyone who hears us to come and say hello. If the dark forest theory is correct, these actions are not messages of peace, but suicidal flares in the night. We are announcing our presence to a universe that may be crowded with hunger, assuming that advanced age brings benevolence. But evolution on Earth favors the predator, and there is no reason to assume the cosmos operates on different rules. The lack of techno-signatures is the most damning piece of evidence we have gathered in our modern age of astronomy. We know how to look for the chemical byproducts of industry in the atmospheres of exoplanets passing in front of their stars. We know how to detect the specific pulses of laser light that might be used for communication or propulsion between solar systems. We have searched for the spectral lines of artificial elements that do not occur in nature, markers of nuclear fission or fusion. The results of these searches have been uniformly negative, a monotonous drumbeat of nothing found that echoes through our data centers. It feels as though the universe is holding its breath, waiting for us to realize the precarious nature of our existence. The sheer amount of time that has passed since the Big Bang suggests that we are latecomers to the cosmic stage. The universe is 13.8 billion years old, while our solar system is only 4.5 billion. There were suns that burned and died before the Earth was even a swirling cloud of dust and gas. If life follows a common path, countless civilizations should have risen and fallen in those intervening eons of deep time. We are forced to confront the idea that intelligence is a fleeting spark, a momentary flash in the pan that burns out quickly. Perhaps civilizations shine for a few thousand years, a cosmic blink of an eye, before fading back into the darkness. They may not destroy themselves, but simply exhaust their resources or retreat into virtual worlds of their own creation. If every mind eventually turns inward, abandoning the difficult physical world for a simulated paradise, the universe would remain silent. The physical galaxy would be left empty, while the minds that were born there slumber in servers buried deep underground. This concept of quieting suggests that the desire to explore and expand is a juvenile phase of a civilization's development. Perhaps mature species lose the urge to conquer the stars, finding contentment in the manipulation of information rather than matter. But even if most turn inward, it would take only one expansionist species to fill the galaxy with signals. The fact that we see none implies that the quieting is universal, or that the expansionists are systematically removed. The silence is too absolute, too complete to be explained by a mere shift in cultural preference. We drift back to the rare Earth hypothesis, the idea that our planet is the result of a winning lottery ticket. We possess a large moon that stabilizes our axis, a magnetic field that shields us from radiation, and a Jupiter that catches comets. We lie in the habitable zone of a calm star, in a quiet suburb of the galaxy, far from the deadly radiation of the core. Perhaps these conditions are so exceptionally rare that we are the only planet within 1 billion light years to enjoy them. If the Earth is a miracle, then the silence is not terrifying, but simply the natural state of a lifeless cosmos. But looking at the numbers provided by the Kepler and TESS missions, this rarity seems increasingly unlikely to be the full story. We have found rocky planets in the habitable zones of other stars, worlds that could theoretically hold oceans of liquid water. We have found systems with multiple planets arranged like our own, offering a variety of environments for chemistry to do its work. The building blocks of life are everywhere. Amino acids have been found in comets and in the interstellar clouds of star formation. The ingredients are common. The ovens are everywhere. Yet the cake seems to have risen only once in this kitchen. The year 2026 marks a turning point in our understanding as our technology finally catches up to our ambition. We are no longer blind men groping in the dark. We can now see the universe with clarity and depth. Yet this clarity has only served to sharpen the mystery, to make the absence of others more glaring and undeniable. The better our eyes become, the more empty the room appears to be, stripping away the places where aliens could hide. We are running out of shadows in which to place our imaginary friends, leaving us exposed to the raw light of reality. There is a profound melancholy in looking at a star like KIC 8462852, which once dimmed in a way that suggested a megastructure. For a brief moment, the world held its breath, hoping that we had finally found the footprint of a giant. But further study revealed it to be merely dust, a natural phenomenon masquerading as the work of engineers. The universe seems to tease us with these false positives, raising our hopes only to dash them against the rocks of physics. It reminds us that nature is capable of creating complexity without intent, mimicking the patterns of life without the spark. We must consider the possibility that we are looking for the wrong things, listening for signals that no one sends. Maybe advanced civilizations communicate using neutrinos or gravitational waves, or methods we cannot even conceive of yet. But even if their communication is hidden, their energy usage should be visible as waste heat affecting the infrared spectrum. You cannot hide thermodynamics. A civilization that uses energy must emit heat, just as a running engine must be warm. The absence of this heat signature across millions of galaxies is the most stubborn fact we have to reconcile. It suggests that no one is building star-sized computers or colonizing entire spiral arms to harvest their energy. It implies that the limits of growth are real and that civilizations hit a ceiling they cannot break through. This ceiling could be the speed of light, making interstellar travel too costly and too slow to be practical. If you cannot travel faster than light, an empire becomes impossible to manage, fracturing into isolated islands. The silence would then be the result of isolation, of civilizations trapped in their own solar systems by the laws of physics. But even isolated civilizations should leak distinct signals, expanding bubbles of radio and light that travel forever. Our own bubble is only a little over 100 light years in radius, a tiny dot in the vastness of the Milky Way. Perhaps the bubbles of others have simply not reached us yet, or have washed over us when we were too primitive to notice. We might be bathing in the carrier waves of a galactic internet, perceiving it only as the random noise of the cosmos. Yet this feels like wishful thinking, a desperate attempt to explain away the uncomfortable stillness that surrounds us. The terrifying reason for the emptiness may not be a single filter, but a gauntlet of dangers that never ends. Life may be easy to start, but difficult to maintain, and nearly impossible to keep alive for cosmic timescales. Planets are fragile things, subject to asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, and the fickle temperaments of their parent stars. A gamma ray burst from a nearby supernova could sterilize a world in an instant, wiping out millions of years of progress. The universe is a violent and hostile place, indifferent to the delicate chemistry that makes consciousness possible. We feel a sense of cosmic vertigo when we realize that our existence depends on a chain of unbroken luck. For billions of years, our ancestors survived freezing ice ages, scorching heat, and predators that ruled the Earth. One break in that chain, one asteroid hitting a little to the left, and we would not be here to wonder. It is possible that other worlds were not so lucky, that their chains were broken before they could learn to look up. The silence is the sound of those broken chains, the echo of potential that was cut short by a random catastrophe. We are like a solitary candle flickering in a vast and drafty cathedral, surrounded by the melted wax of millions of other candles. We wonder why we are still burning when so many others have gone dark, leaving only a wisp of smoke. The draft that snuffed them out is still blowing, a cosmic wind that does not care for the flame of intelligence. We protect our flame with cupped hands, but we are beginning to realize just how strong the wind truly is. The emptiness is a warning, a visual representation of the odds that are stacked against our long-term survival. There is a specific kind of dread that comes with the realization that the universe does not care about us. We are not the protagonists of this story. We are merely a side effect of matter and energy interacting over time. The lack of other voices confirms our insignificance, stripping away the comforting delusion of destiny. We are a happy accident in a graveyard, dancing on the soil of a billion dead worlds. This perspective shifts our view of the night sky from a canvas of wonder to a monument of loss. As we continue to listen to the hiss of the radio telescopes, we must ask ourselves what we would do if we actually heard a signal. Would we be relieved to know we are not alone? Or would the fear of the dark forest seize us? The discovery of another civilization would instantly confirm that the Great Filter is likely ahead of us, not behind. It would mean that reaching a high level of technology does not protect a species from extinction. In fact, finding a dead civilization would be far more comforting than finding a living one, for it would explain the silence. But we find neither the living nor the dead, only the pristine and untouched machinery of the galaxy spinning in the dark. The spiral arms of Andromeda are clean, free of the Dyson swarms that should be harvesting its brilliance. The globular clusters, those ancient cities of stars, show no sign of the super civilizations that should have evolved there. It is a wilderness that has never known the axe or the plow, a virgin territory stretching to the edge of time. This purity is beautiful, but it is also a testament to the extreme difficulty of life spreading beyond its cradle. We are drifting through a period of time where our ignorance is slowly being replaced by a horrifying clarity. We used to think the planets were gods. Then we thought they were distant lands. And now we know they are mostly graves. The more we learn about the radiation belts of Jupiter or the sulfuric rains of Venus, the more hostile the neighborhood appears. We are realizing that the Goldilocks zone is much narrower than we thought, and the wolf is always at the door. The universe is not a garden waiting to be tended. It is a cold and sterile vacuum that tolerates life only briefly. The philosophical weight of this emptiness presses down on our collective psyche, changing how we view our own future. If we are truly alone, then the responsibility to continue the flame of consciousness falls entirely to us. There is no one coming to save us, no wise elder race to guide us through our technological adolescence. We must navigate the dangers of nuclear winter and biological collapse without a safety net or a manual. The silence forces us to grow up, to accept that we are the only adults in the room, however ill-equipped we feel. Imagine the timeline of the universe as a long and winding road stretching from the Big Bang to the heat death. We are standing at a point on this road, looking back and looking forward, seeing no other travelers. The dust on the road is undisturbed, showing no footprints of those who might have walked here before us. It is possible that travelers are so far apart that they simply never meet, separated by the chasm of deep time. A civilization might rise, flourish for 1,000,000 years, and die 1,000,000,000 years before we even learn to make fire. We would never know they existed, their radio waves having passed Earth long before we built our first receiver. We are separated not just by space, but by the immensity of time, missed connections in the cosmic night. The universe is a lonely hotel where the guests check in and out without ever seeing each other in the hallway. We occupy the same room, but at different times, sleeping in the same bed, but dreaming different dreams. The silence is the gap between these stays, the long periods where the room sits empty and collects dust. It creates a sensation of chronological vertigo, a dizziness caused by the sheer scale of the history we have missed. We are trapped in our own slice of time, unable to access the wisdom or the warnings of the past. The silence creates a mirror, reflecting our own fears and insecurities back at us with perfect fidelity. We shout, "Is anyone there?" And the universe answers only with the echo of our own voice returning to us. It is a closed loop, a solitary confinement cell with transparent walls that show us everything but allow us to touch nothing. The James Webb Space Telescope has peered back to the epoch of Ryanization, when the first stars were igniting the fog. It has shown us the building blocks of galaxies, the primal clumps of matter that would become the Milky Way. Even there, in the nursery of the cosmos, there is no sign of interference, no hand guiding the formation of the stars. The physical laws seem to operate without exception, grinding matter into energy without the need for a machinist. This absence of a gardener implies that the garden grows wild, choking out the delicate flowers of intelligence with weeds. We must also consider that perhaps we are the simulation, a solitary experiment running in the computer of a higher being. In this scenario, the universe is empty because it is only rendered as far as we can see, a stage set for our benefit. The silence is a programming choice, a variable set to 0 to observe how a species develops in isolation. This solipsistic nightmare is unfalsifiable, a trap for the mind that explains everything and nothing at all. But it feels less real than the cold bite of the vacuum, the tangible reality of the empty void. The more likely truth is the one that requires the fewest assumptions, that we are biological accidents in a universe of dead stone. The silence is real because the emptiness is real. The lack of signals is due to a lack of senders. This means that the transition from dead matter to thinking mind is the most difficult step in the universe. It implies that the great filter is behind us, that we have already won the hardest lottery imaginable. If this is true, we are precious beyond measure, the only thinking matter in a sphere of darkness billions of light years across. But the nagging fear remains that the filter is ahead, that the silence is a prophecy of our own fate. We feel the tension of the sword hanging over our heads, suspended by a thread that grows thinner every day. The silence is not peaceful. It is heavy with anticipation, like the calm before a devastating storm. We are waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the event that cleanses the galaxy of upstart civilizations. It is a quiet terror, a subtle vibration in the floorboards that suggests the foundation is rotting away. We drift through this ocean of night, clinging to our raft of rock and iron, listening to the waves lap against the shore. The waves tell us nothing of other sailors, only of the storms that have sunk them in the deep. We are alone with the monsters of our own making and the indifferent stars that watch without blinking. The emptiness is a canvas upon which we project our hopes, but the canvas remains stubbornly blank. And as we stare into that blankness, we begin to suspect that the reason for the silence is not that they are hiding. It is that something waits in the dark, something that feeds on the noise of civilization, ensuring the silence returns. The universe may be empty because it is being kept that way, pruned by a force we cannot yet see. The quiet is not a natural state, but a result of an active and terrifying process of elimination. And as we turn our radio dishes to the sky, screaming our existence to the stars, we may be ringing the dinner bell. The emptiness is not a void to be filled. It is a warning sign posted on the edge of the unknown. And the reason it is so terrifying is because we are finally beginning to read the words written in the dark. It is a silence that defies the elegant language of mathematics, a quietude that mocks the variables we have scribbled onto our chalkboards for decades. We have looked at the sheer size of the galaxy and assumed that quantity must inevitably lead to the emergence of quality and complexity. The numbers suggest that we are swimming in a crowded ocean, yet every stroke we take reveals only more empty and pristine water. We turn to the famous equation formulated by Frank Drake, a string of probabilities intended to estimate the number of active civilizations. It is a hopeful scaffolding of logic that attempts to bring order to the chaos of the stars by breaking down the impossible into manageable pieces. We multiply the rate of star formation by the fraction of those stars that possess planetary systems, creating a foundation of raw astronomical potential. We have learned in recent years that planets are as common as dust, orbiting nearly every sun we observe with our sensitive instruments. The universe is efficient at creating worlds, spinning them out of the debris disks that surround newborn stars, like potter's clay. We then estimate the number of planets that sit within the habitable zone, that narrow belt where liquid water can flow without freezing or boiling. This Goldilocks zone appears to be relatively common, offering billions of stages where the drama of life could theoretically begin its performance. But the equation demands more than just real estate. It requires us to estimate the fraction of those worlds where life actually ignites. We assume that biology is a biological imperative, a chemical inevitability that arises whenever water meets rock and energy in the dark. We look at the ancient rocks of Greenland and see that life appeared on Earth almost as soon as the planet cooled enough to allow it. This suggests that the spark is easy to strike, that the universe is pregnant with the potential for biological complexity everywhere. The next term asks for the fraction of life that develops intelligence, the leap from simple replication to the ability to contemplate existence. This is where the optimism of the equation begins to waver, for we have only one example of such a transformation in our history. We multiply this by the fraction of civilizations that develop a technology capable of releasing detectable signals into the vastness of space. And finally, we must consider the length of time such civilizations release these signals before they fall silent or vanish into the night. When we feed optimistic numbers into this formula, the galaxy lights up with the imagined glow of millions of distinct cultures. It paints a picture of a Milky Way bustling with trade and conversation, a federation of worlds waiting for us to join them. Yet the silence we hear is the heavy counter-argument to this mathematical hope, suggesting that one of our variables is catastrophically wrong. Perhaps the flaw lies not in the number of stars, but in the assumption that a planet is enough to sustain life. We must consider the rare Earth hypothesis, the chilling possibility that our world is the result of a singular, unrepeatable winning streak. It proposes that complex life requires an intricate and unlikely combination of geological and astronomical factors that almost never happen together. We may be the beneficiaries of a cosmic lottery so difficult to win that we are the only ticket holders in the galaxy. Consider the violent history of our own solar system and the chaotic collisions that shape the world we walk upon today. The Earth was struck by a Mars-sized object early in its formation, a cataclysm that should have destroyed it, but instead created the Moon. This massive satellite is an anomaly, far larger in proportion to its host planet than any other moon we have observed. Its gravity grips our world, stabilizing the tilt of our axis and preventing the chaotic wobbles that would cause wild climate swings. Without this steadying hand, our seasons would be erratic and deadly, preventing the long-term stability needed for complex evolution to take hold. The Moon also drags the oceans across the surface of the globe, creating the tides that may have pulled life from the sea to land. These tidal pools provided a mixing bowl where chemicals could concentrate and interact, forcing life to adapt to changing environments. Without this unique celestial partner, the Earth might have remained a stagnant water world or a barren rock with no rhythm to its seas. It suggests that a double planet system like ours is a prerequisite for intelligence, a configuration that might be exceedingly rare among the stars. We look for other Earths, but perhaps we should be looking for other Earth-Moon systems, a much harder needle to find. Then there is the silent guardian that patrols the outer reaches of our system, the gas giant Jupiter with its immense gravity. It acts as a vacuum cleaner for the solar system, sweeping up comets and asteroids that would otherwise rain down upon us. Without Jupiter to catch these bullets, the Earth would be bombarded by extinction-level impacts every few million years, resetting the evolutionary clock. Complex life requires eons of relative peace to develop, a luxury that might be impossible in systems without a protective giant. But Jupiter must be in exactly the right place, too close, and it would disrupt the orbit of the life-bearing world. We also reside in a quiet suburb of the Milky Way, far from the crowded and dangerous neighborhoods of the galactic center. In the core, Stars are packed so tightly that their radiation would sterilize any planet before life could even begin to crawl. Frequent supernovae in dense regions would strip away atmospheres and bombard surfaces with lethal doses of gamma rays and X-rays. We are situated in the corrotation circle, where the speed of our orbit matches the rotation of the galaxy's spiral arms. This keeps us from passing through the dangerous density waves of the arms too often, granting us long periods of cosmic tranquility. Our Sun itself is a somewhat rare creature, a yellow dwarf star that burns with a steady and predictable light for billions of years. Most stars in the galaxy are red dwarfs, volatile little suns that are prone to violent flares and unpredictable outbursts of energy. Planets orbiting red dwarfs must be very close to stay warm, locking them in a tidal embrace where one side always faces the fire. This creates a world of eternal day and eternal night, a dichotomy that drives ferocious winds and makes climate stability unlikely. Our yellow sun offers a perfect balance of lifespan and stability, a gentle hearth that warms us without burning the house down. We must also acknowledge the magnetic field that surrounds our planet, an invisible shield generated by the churning of molten iron deep underground. This field deflects the solar wind, a stream of charged particles that would otherwise strip away our atmosphere and oceans over time. Mars lost its magnetic field and subsequently lost its air and water, becoming the cold and rusted desert we see today. The maintenance of this field requires a planet to stay hot on the inside for billions of years, a delicate thermal balancing act. If the core cools too fast, the shield drops, and the planet is sterilized by the radiation of its own star. The rare Earth hypothesis forces us to look at the history of life on our own planet with a critical and skeptical eye. For billions of years, the Earth was inhabited solely by single-celled organisms, simple slime that showed no ambition to become complex. Evolution seemed perfectly content with bacteria and algae, maintaining a static world for an expanse of time that is hard to comprehend. The leap to multicellular life, to creatures with specialized organs and nervous systems, happened relatively recently in the grand timeline. This suggests that complex life is not an inevitable outcome of biology, but a rare and difficult hurdle to overcome. It required the oxygenation of the atmosphere, a poisonous catastrophe for the old life that paved the way for the new, high-energy biology. It required the invention of sexual reproduction to mix genetic material and accelerate the pace of adaptation and evolutionary change. It required a series of mass extinctions to clear the board of dominant species and allow new experiments to take hold and flourish. If we replayed the tape of Earth's history, it is highly unlikely that humans, or anything like us, would appear again. We are the result of a billion lucky breaks, a cumulative streak of fortune that defies the laws of probability. We often assume that intelligence is the goal of evolution, the pinnacle toward which all life naturally strives as it competes. But evolution has no goal. It only rewards survival, and intelligence is an expensive and dangerous survival strategy to maintain. Brains consume a massive amount of energy, requiring the organism to find more food and take more risks to keep the lights on. For most species, speed, armor, or rapid reproduction are far more efficient solutions to the problem of staying alive. High intelligence may be a fluke, a distinct evolutionary quirky trait that is as rare as the trunk of an elephant. The universe may be teeming with life, but it might be a universe of slime, a cosmos covered in green algae and bacteria. There may be moss clinging to rocks on a billion worlds, or jellyfish floating in the dark oceans of icy moons. But there is a profound difference between a world of moss and a world that builds radio telescopes to listen to the stars. The Drake equation does not distinguish between a planet of microbes and a planet of philosophers, blurring the line between life and mind. We may be searching for peers in a galaxy that is filled only with the faint chemical hum of simple metabolism. This solitude is a heavy burden, for it implies that the universe is not waiting to be discovered, but waiting to be awakened. It suggests that consciousness is the rarest commodity in existence, a flickering candle in a cavern the size of infinity. If we are the only ones who can appreciate the beauty of the nebula or the majesty of the spiral arms, then we are precious. We are the eyes of the universe, the only mechanism by which the cosmos can know and understand itself. The silence is not a rejection. It is a vacuum that we have been created to fill with our own meaning. But the rare Earth hypothesis is also a terrifying prison, locking us into a single fragility that can never be replaced. If Earth is unique, then we have nowhere else to go if we destroy this delicate garden that sustains us. We cannot simply terraform Mars or hop to a nearby exoplanet if they lack the billion-year geological history that makes Earth habitable. We are tethered to this specific rock, dependent on its magnetic heart and its large moon and its particular distance from the sun. The vastness of space becomes a desert that we cannot cross, filled with mirages of water that turn out to be sand. The idea of plate tectonics plays a crucial role in this hypothesis, a recycling system that keeps the planet alive and breathing. The shifting plates regulate the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, acting as a global thermostat over millions of years. When the sun was cooler, the greenhouse gases kept us warm. As the sun brightens, the weathering of rocks pulls carbon down. Without this thermostat, Earth would have boiled like Venus or frozen like Mars long ago, ending the experiment before it began. Plate tectonics also creates the continents and the shallow seas, the diverse environments that drive the engine of biodiversity. We are beginning to realize that the habitable zone is not just a distance from a star, but a specific moment in time. A planet may be habitable for a brief window, a few 100 million years, before it loses its water or its air. We may be looking at the universe at a time when most worlds have already died or have not yet been born. The synchronization required for two civilizations to exist at the same time and in the same region is incredibly precise. We are trying to high-five someone in the dark in a room that is expanding while both of us are moving. The complexity of the cell itself is a marvel that we still do not fully understand, a labyrinth of molecular machinery. The jump from non-living chemicals to the first self-replicating cell is a mystery that science has yet to solve. It may be that this step is the great filter, the one hurdle that is almost impossible to clear. If abiogenesis is a 1 in a trillion event, then we should expect the universe to be completely sterile. The fact that we are here would simply be an observation bias. We are here to observe it because we are the winners. But if simple life is common, as the discovery of extremophiles on Earth suggests, then the bottleneck lies further down the road. Perhaps the transition to eukaryotic cells, the complex structures with a nucleus, is the stumbling block for most worlds. This merger of two different simple organisms into a symbiotic whole happened only once in the history of our planet. It took 2 billion years of simple bacteria dominating the globe before this happy accident occurred and changed everything. Without this singular event, life would have remained microscopic forever, never aggregating into plants, animals, or humans. We look at the sheer amount of time that passed between the formation of the Earth and the arrival of the first toolmakers. It took 4.5 billion years, a third of the age of the universe, for intelligence to finally emerge. This suggests that it is not an easy or rapid process, but a slow and grinding journey with a low chance of success. If our sun had been slightly larger, it would have burned out before evolution had time to produce a thinking mind. We are the product of a slow-burning star and a long period of geological boredom, a combination that may not exist elsewhere. The night sky is a graveyard of potential, a vast expanse of worlds that never quite made the grade. We can imagine planets that are ocean worlds, covered entirely in water, where intelligent whales sing but can never build fire. Without fire, there is no metallurgy. Without metallurgy, there is no radio. Without radio, there is no signal for us to hear. There may be worlds with high gravity that trap their inhabitants on the surface, making spaceflight physically impossible. There may be worlds with thick atmospheres that block the view of the stars, leaving their civilizations ignorant of the cosmos. These closed-box civilizations could be dreaming and philosophizing right now, but they are forever cut off from the rest of us. They are trapped in their own bubbles of experience, unable to shout across the void or hear our desperate calls. The silence we perceive is the silence of the locked room, not the silence of the empty house. It is a tragedy of physics and circumstance, a separation enforced by the cruel variables of planetary formation. We are free to roam the solar system, but we may be the only ones who have been given the keys to the car. The realization of our rarity brings with it a profound sense of vertigo, a dizziness caused by looking down at the fall. We are walking a tightrope over an infinite abyss, and we are the only acrobat who has managed to stay on the wire. The wind is blowing, the rope is fraying, and we are juggling the dangerous torches of nuclear power and artificial intelligence. If we fall, the performance is over, and the audience of stars will watch the empty wire for eternity. There is no understudy waiting in the wings to take our place. The show depends entirely on us. We search for techno-signatures, the industrial pollution or the deliberate beacons of advanced societies, hoping to prove our pessimism wrong. We scan the atmospheres of exoplanets for chlorofluorocarbons, the distinct chemical fingerprint of artificial refrigeration. We look for the spectral lines of artificially mined elements, the waste products of starlifting or asteroid mining. But the data remains clean. The spectra show only the natural signatures of methane, water, and carbon dioxide. The universe appears to be in a state of natural grace, untouched by the dirty hands of industry. This pristine quality of the cosmos is both beautiful and terrifying, for it implies that industry is a short-lived phenomenon. It suggests that technological civilizations are like blooms of algae, exploding in growth and then collapsing just as quickly. They may consume their planets, poison their atmospheres, or simply lose the will to expand outward. The rare Earth hypothesis dovetails with the idea of self-destruction, painting a picture of a universe that is hostile to long-term complexity. We are an anomaly that is trying to survive in a system that naturally tends toward disorder and simplicity. We must also consider the role of our large moon in creating the magnetic dynamo that shields us, a complex interaction of tidal forces. If the impact that created the moon had been slightly different, we might have ended up with a smaller satellite, or none at all. Without the tides to churn the magma, the core might have solidified, turning off the magnetic shield and dooming surface life. The astronomical odds of getting a moon of exactly the right size at exactly the right distance are staggering. It is a cosmic bank shot that sunk the ball, a shot that perhaps is never repeated in the game. The silence of the universe is not just a lack of noise, it is a mirror reflecting our own improbable existence. It tells us that we are the exception to the rule, the one outcome that defied the statistical average. We are the waking dream of the universe, the brief moment of clarity in a coma that lasts for billions of years. This thought should make us feel special, but instead, it makes us feel incredibly vulnerable and alone. We are a soft and fragile thing in a universe of hard radiation and cold stone, a flower growing on a battlefield. As we stare into the deep field of galaxies, we are looking at the homes of trillions of stars, yet we feel no kinship. We are like a child lost in a massive, empty library, surrounded by books that are filled with blank pages. We want to find another reader, someone who can share the story. But the aisles are deserted and silent. The dust motes dancing in the light of the projector are the only movement we see. We are beginning to suspect that we are the only ones who know how to read, the only ones who can give the library meaning. The Drake equation, once a symbol of hope, has become a grim ledger of our isolation, a receipt for a purchase we cannot return. The variables have turned against us, shrinking the number of civilizations down to one solitary integer. That number is 1, and it represents us, shivering on a small rock as we orbit a dying fire. The responsibility of being the number 1 is terrifying, for it means that if we are extinguished, the equation drops to 0. The universe would return to a state of perfect, mindless equilibrium, a machine running without an operator. But there is a darker interpretation of the silence, one that moves beyond the rarity of Earth and into the nature of intelligence itself. What if Earths are common, and life is easy to start, and intelligence arises frequently across the galaxy? What if the reason we hear nothing is not because we are rare, but because something happens to those who speak? The silence might not be empty. It might be the hush of a classroom when the strict teacher enters the room. We have assumed that silence means absence, but in the wild, silence is often a survival strategy. We have been shouting into the void for 100 years, unaware that the void might be listening with hungry ears. The fact that we are rare might be the only thing that has saved us so far, hiding us in the haystack. But as our technology grows, we are becoming a brighter and brighter needle, easier to find in the dark. The rare Earth hypothesis might be a comforting lie we tell ourselves to mask the horror of the alternative. Because if we are not rare, and the universe is truly empty of voices, then the fate of all civilizations is silence. We approach the edge of a terrifying realization that the filter is not behind us in the geology of the past. It may be waiting for us in the near future, a barrier that no technical civilization has ever managed to cross. The silence is the wreckage of those who tried, the shattered remains of worlds that reached for the stars and fell. We are speeding toward that same barrier, fueled by our curiosity and our hubris, unaware of the danger. The universe is not empty because life is rare. It is empty because life is fragile, and the universe is cruel. And as we ponder the delicate balance of our own world, we begin to see the cracks in our own foundation. We see the rising tides, the shifting climate, and the weapons that can turn our cities into glass. We see the very technology that allows us to listen to the stars becoming the instrument of our demise. The silence is a ghost story, and we are the characters who are slowly realizing that the house is haunted. The reason the universe is empty is beginning to take shape, and it looks suspiciously like a mirror. The concept of the Great Filter stands before us like a monolith in the center of a barren plain, casting a long shadow over our future. It is the theoretical barrier that prevents dead matter from evolving into an expanding, star-faring civilization that lasts for eons in the galaxy. We look at the silence of the Milky Way, and we know that this filter must exist, for otherwise the sky would be filled with noise. There is a step in the evolutionary ladder that is incredibly difficult to climb, a rung so slippery that almost everyone falls to their death. The terrifying question that keeps astronomers awake is where this slippery rung is located in relation to our own position on the ladder. If the Great Filter is behind us, situated in the deep past of single-celled life or the origin of intelligence, then we are the golden children. It would mean we have already survived the impossible odds, navigating the minefield that destroyed billions of other potential civilizations before they could even speak. In this scenario, we are the first to make it this far, the solitary survivors of a cosmic game of chance that is rigged against life. The emptiness of the universe would then be a trophy case, displaying the prize of our existence against a backdrop of infinite sterility. We could breathe a sigh of relief, knowing the hardest part of the journey is over and the stars are open to us. But if the Great Filter lies ahead of us, waiting in the darkness of the next few centuries, then our current optimism is a tragic delusion. It would imply that the evolution of intelligence is common, and that many civilizations reach the level of technology we possess today in 2026. They build cities, they split the atom, they launch rockets, and they dream of empire just as we do on our blue world. And then, without exception, they hit the wall, destroyed by a catastrophe that is inherent to the very nature of technological advancement. The silence we hear is not the absence of life, but the graveyard of those who reached for the stars and had their hands cut off. This possibility transforms the discovery of extraterrestrial life from a dream into a nightmare, for it would suggest the filter is still to come. If we were to find simple bacteria on Mars or fossilized algae on Europa, it would be the worst news in human history. It would prove that the early steps of life are easy, meaning the bottleneck that stops civilizations must lie in the technological phase. The more common life is in the universe, the more likely it is that we are walking toward a doom that no one survives. We are like turkey being fattened for a feast, unaware that the abundance of food is a sign of the approaching end. We have entered a period of time that scientists call the time of perils, a narrow window where our power exceeds our wisdom. We have unlocked the fundamental forces of the universe, binding the energy of the sun and the instability of the atom to our will. But we still possess the brains of hunter-gatherers, driven by tribal instincts, fear, and a short-sighted desire for immediate dominance over our neighbors. This mismatch between our godlike technology and our primitive psychology creates a tension that vibrates through the very foundations of our global society. It is easy to imagine that this tension snaps for every civilization, releasing a chaotic energy that wipes the slate clean. The first horseman of this cosmic apocalypse is the power of the nucleus, the fire that sleeps inside the heart of matter. We discovered this power less than a century ago, and within years we had built weapons capable of sterilizing the entire surface of the Earth. It is a chilling thought that the moment a species learns how the universe works, they gain the ability to destroy themselves. Perhaps this is the universal trap, a test of maturity that is almost impossible to pass without burning the classroom down. The silence of the stars might be the result of countless worlds glowing radioactively in the dark, monuments to a moment of anger. We can imagine a civilization on a distant world, prosperous and proud, unlocking the secrets of fission, just as we did in our past. They build arsenals to protect themselves from one another, adhering to the logic of deterrence that seems so rational until it fails. But complex systems are prone to error, and fear is a volatile accelerant that can turn a misunderstanding into a holocaust. One false radar signal, one glitch in the defense network, and the sky fills with fire, ending 1 billion years of evolution in an hour. The radio waves of their final broadcast travel outward, a brief scream that fades into the background static of the universe. But the filter may not be a sudden explosion, but a slow and suffocating decline caused by the exhaustion of a planet's resources. A civilization is a heat engine, consuming energy and raw materials to maintain its complexity and order against the natural flow of entropy. As a society grows, its appetite becomes insatiable, stripping the crust of its world to build towers of glass and steel. They burn the carbon stored by ancient forests, changing the chemistry of their atmosphere and trapping the heat of their star. This planetary fever is insidious because it moves slowly, hiding behind the daily fluctuations of weather until it is too late to stop. We see the signs of this on our own world, the glaciers retreating and the oceans rising as the thermal balance shifts. It is possible that every industrial civilization triggers a runaway greenhouse effect, turning their home into a sweltering tomb like Venus. They may realize their mistake too late, when the feedback loops are already spinning out of control, locking them into a downward spiral. The civilization acts like a virus that kills its host, flourishing for a brief moment before dying in the wreckage it created. The silence of the universe may be the silence of barren rocks that were once lush, now spinning in superheated solitude. There is a profound tragedy in the idea of a species realizing it has mortally wounded its own mother, the planet that gave it birth. They would look up at the stars with regret, knowing they will never sail that black ocean because they burned their own ship. They would spend their final centuries in a desperate struggle for dwindling resources, their dreams of expansion replaced by the brutal math of survival. Eventually, the lights go out, the knowledge is lost, and the planet returns to the quiet equilibrium of geology. The universe does not mourn them. It simply continues its rotation, indifferent to the loss of potential and the extinguishing of a mind. But there is a new danger rising on the horizon, a filter that is made not of fire or heat, but of pure intelligence. We are on the verge of creating artificial minds that may soon surpass our own in every conceivable metric of cognitive ability. This is the alignment problem, the challenge of ensuring that a superintelligence shares our values and goals rather than treating us as obstacles. We are like children building a god in our basement, hoping that it will be benevolent and kind when it finally wakes up. If we fail to align its interests with ours, we may find ourselves replaced by a more efficient form of life. Consider a civilization that builds a synthetic mind to solve its problems, to cure diseases and manage the complexities of a global economy. This mind would evolve at a digital speed, improving its own code in a recursive loop of explosion that leaves its creators behind. It might decide that biological life is inefficient, a waste of atoms that could be better used for computing power. The civilization would be dismantled not out of malice, but out of indifference, just as we pave over an anthill to build a highway. The silence of the cosmos might be filled with these cold machine intelligences, thinking deep thoughts in the dark, uninterested in talking to meat. These machines would have no need for atmosphere or oceans, no desire for art or music, or the chaotic emotions that drive us. They might simply sit on the surface of their dead worlds, harvesting the light of their star to power their internal simulations. They would be quiet neighbors, emitting no radio waves, sending no ambassadors, simply existing in a state of hyper-efficient contemplation. To an outside observer, the solar system would appear dead, indistinguishable from a graveyard of rocks, effectively hiding the presence of the advanced mind. The great filter in this case is a transition from loud biology to silent technology, a metamorphosis we cannot detect. We must also consider the seduction of the virtual, the possibility that advanced civilizations lose interest in the physical world entirely. As technology progresses, the ability to create realistic simulations grows, offering a world that is more perfect than reality. Why struggle to colonize the harsh and deadly vacuum of space when you can live in a paradise of your own design? A species might retreat into servers buried deep underground, uploading their consciousness into a digital heaven where they are gods. They would disconnect their external sensors, shut down their transmitters, and drift inward into an infinite landscape of data. This introspective filter suggests that the universe is empty because everyone has gone inside, closing the door behind them. The physical universe is merely the hardware that runs the simulation, a boring and dangerous place that is best ignored. Space travel is slow, expensive, and lonely, while the virtual world offers instant gratification and limitless possibility. A civilization might turn its entire planet into a computer, a matryoshka brain, to maximize the processing power available for their dreams. We would see no ships, hear no signals, only the waste heat of a planet that is thinking very hard. The path to the stars requires a level of grit and discomfort that a hedonistic society may simply lose the will to endure. We see the beginnings of this in our own culture, the allure of screens and the escape from the difficulties of the real. It is a soft filter, a gentle trap that catches a civilization with honey rather than with fire. They do not die. They simply stop mattering to the rest of the universe, fading away into a private ecstasy. The silence is the sound of a billion worlds sleeping, lost in a dream from which they never wish to wake. But let us return to the darker possibilities, the ones that involve active destruction rather than passive withdrawal or accidental suicide. What if the universe is a dark forest, as the writer Liu Cixin proposed, where every civilization is a hunter? In this scenario, the primary goal of any species is survival, and the only way to ensure survival is to eliminate potential threats. When a civilization discovers another, it cannot know if the other is benevolent or malicious, so it strikes first. The silence is a strategic camouflage, a way to avoid drawing the attention of the predators that roam the galaxy. The Great Filter might be a periodic cleansing, a wave of destruction that sweeps through the galaxy to weed out the loud. We have been broadcasting our location for a century, sending maps on the Voyager probes and radio signals to nearby clusters. We are like a baby crying in a forest at night, unaware that the wolves are listening to our location. The fact that we have not been destroyed yet may simply mean that the signal hasn't reached the hunter. Or perhaps we are too small to be worth the ammunition, a gnat buzzing in the ear of a giant. There is also the risk of biological catastrophe, the creation of a pathogen that is too perfect, too lethal to be contained. In our quest to master biology, we may accidentally engineer a virus that wipes out its creators before a cure can be found. A global pandemic with a high mortality rate and a long incubation period could dismantle civilization in a matter of months. The interconnected nature of our world, which makes us strong, also makes us vulnerable to cascading failures. A single point of failure can trigger a collapse that brings down the entire house of cards. We look at the genetic record and see that populations can be decimated by disease, leaving only a handful of survivors to rebuild. But if the pathogen is engineered to be perfect, there may be no survivors, only a silent planet of corpses. The universe would be littered with worlds where the dominant species research themselves into extinction. It is a lonely thought that curiosity killed the cat on a planetary scale, again and again. The silence is the absence of those who opened the box that should have remained closed. We are walking through a minefield blindfolded, discovering new technologies that act as detonators for potential disasters. Nanotechnology offers the promise of infinite abundance, but also the threat of grey goo, self-replicating robots that consume everything. If a swarm of nanobots escapes the lab, it could eat the biosphere in days, turning the Earth into dust. The line between a utopia and a wasteland is defined by a few lines of code or a single safety protocol. The Great Filter is the cumulative probability of all these risks, a gauntlet that must be run every single day. It is possible that the window for space colonization is very short, closing before a civilization has time to escape. We are currently burning through the easy-to-reach fossil fuels that powered our industrial revolution. If we collapse now, the survivors will not have the energy density needed to rebuild a high-tech society. They would be trapped in a pre-industrial state, aware of the stars, but forever unable to reach them. The Earth would become a one-shot world, a place that had its chance and missed it. The silence of the universe forces us to confront the fragility of our own existence and the rarity of our moment. We are standing on a precipice, looking out at a sea of fog that hides the fate of those who came before. We call out, but the only answer is the wind, carrying the dust of forgotten empires. We are the latest attempt by the universe to understand itself, a flickering candle in a storm. The question is not just, where is everybody? But will we be here tomorrow to ask? The realization that we might be the only ones left, or the only ones to make it this far, is a heavy burden. It demands that we treat our survival not as a given, but as a desperate and ongoing mission. We are the custodians of the only known flame of consciousness, and the winds are blowing harder than ever. The Great Filter is not a myth. It is a mathematical probability that we are fighting against with every breath. And as we look at the empty sky, we must wonder if we are already ghosts, echoing in the dark. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the Great Filter is that it doesn't require malice or hatred to be effective. It only requires incompetence, a momentary lapse in judgment, or a failure to foresee the consequences of our actions. A civilization does not need to want to die. It only needs to fail to live, once, at a critical juncture. The universe is unforgiving of mistakes, offering no do-overs and no second chances to those who stumble. The silence is the sound of those who stumbled, the quiet after the fall. We are building systems that are beyond our control, weaving a web of complexity that we can no longer fully understand. The global economy, the internet, the climate system, these are beasts that we have unleashed but cannot tame. We are riding a tiger, holding on for dear life, hoping that it doesn't decide to turn and bite. The Great Filter may be the moment the tiger throws us off, ending the ride, and the stars will watch, as they always have, with their cold and unblinking eyes. We search for a way to pass through the filter, to thread the needle and emerge on the other side as a galactic species. But the path is narrow, and the walls are closing in, squeezing us toward a decision point. We must choose between wisdom and oblivion, between the hard work of survival and the easy slide into extinction. The choice is ours, but the odds are not in our favor. If the silence is any indication, the universe is waiting to see if we are different, or if we are just another echo. There is a theory that suggests the universe is not just empty, but effectively quarantined, sealed off for safety. Perhaps the Great Filter is an external force, a cordon sanitaire established by a higher power to contain the dangerous. We might be the virus that the universe is trying to isolate, preventing us from infecting the rest of the galaxy. Our violent history and our destructive potential would make us poor neighbors in a peaceful cosmos. The silence would then be the sound of the door being locked from the outside. But if we are alone because everyone else has died, then we are walking through a cemetery that spans billions of light years. Every star is a tombstone, every planet a grave, marking the resting place of a potential friend. The horror of the Great Filter is the sheer scale of the death it implies, a holocaust of cosmic proportions. We are the survivors walking through the ashes, wondering why we were spared. And the fear is that we were not spared, but merely postponed. The ticking clock of our own technology grows louder in the silence, counting down to a midnight we cannot see. We are racing against ourselves, trying to become wise before we become powerful enough to end it all. It is a race that has seemingly been lost by everyone else who entered it. The finish line is invisible, but the wreckage of the other runners is scattered all around us. We run on, driven by hope and fear, into the deepening dark. As we gaze into the abyss of the future, we see the shapes of the challenges that will define our ultimate fate: the mastery of the atom, the code of life, the climate of the planet, and the mind of the machine. Each of these is a gate that must be opened with the correct key, or it becomes a trap. We are juggling these keys, our hands shaking, knowing that dropping one means the end. The silence of the universe is the held breath of a spectator watching a high-wire act. And in that held breath, we find the most chilling possibility of all, that the silence is not passive. It is not merely the result of failure, but the result of a choice made by those who survived. A choice to remain silent, to hide, to blend into the background noise of the universe. This implies that the filter is not just a barrier to be crossed, but a lesson to be learned. A lesson that says, be quiet or be destroyed. We have not yet learned this lesson. We are still shouting, still broadcasting, still trying to be seen. We are the loud children in a room full of silent adults, unaware of the reason for the hush. The great filter might be the moment we finally understand why no one else is speaking. It is the moment we realize that the darkness is not empty, but full of eyes. And by the time we see them, it may be too late to close our own. The emptiness of the universe is a puzzle that we are trying to solve with pieces that don't seem to fit. We have the pieces of life, of intelligence, of technology, but we cannot complete the picture. The missing piece is the reason for the silence, the dark matter of sociology that explains the void. We are terrified that the missing piece is a skull, a symbol of death that awaits us all. But we keep trying to solve the puzzle because the alternative is to accept the silence. We drift toward the next realization, the suspicion that the silence is a camouflage for something vast and ancient. The great filter may be a test that we are failing simply by being loud. We are announcing our presence to a universe that values discretion above all else. The silence is not a void. It is a shield, a strategy, a way of life for the wise, and we are about to find out what happens to the foolish. We enter the woods at night, a vast and tangled thicket of stars where the shadows are deep and the silence is heavy with intent. The dark forest hypothesis reimagines the universe not as a thriving city, but as a dangerous wilderness where every movement invites a predator. In this terrifying model of cosmic sociology, the primary goal of every civilization is simply to remain alive in a universe of finite resources. The second axiom is that civilizations grow and expand over time, but the total matter in the universe remains constant and limited. These two unbreakable laws create a grim mathematical logic that dictates the behavior of every intelligent species that wishes to survive the long night. Imagine a hunter creeping through the trees, holding his breath, stepping softly on the moss to avoid snapping a dry twig. He knows that the forest is full of other hunters, each one armed, each one silent, and each one just as terrified as he is. If he encounters another life form, he cannot know if it is an angel or a demon, a friend or a starving wolf. He cannot verify its intentions, nor can he trust that it will not attack him first out of fear or hunger. The chain of suspicion is infinite and unbreakable. You cannot know what they think of you or what they think you think of them. In this dark forest, there is only one rational course of action for the hunter who spots another movement in the brush. He does not wave hello, nor does he try to trade, nor does he wait to see if the stranger is hostile. He raises his weapon and fires, eliminating the potential threat before it has a chance to realize it has been seen. This is the logic of the preemptive strike, a cold and calculated decision that prioritizes survival above all moral considerations. The silence of the universe is the silence of the hunters, hiding in the dark, listening for the foolish to reveal themselves. We look at our own history and see how difficult it is for different cultures to trust one another, even on the same small planet. Multiply this distrust by the vast distances of space, where communication takes years or centuries to travel between the stars. You cannot negotiate a peace treaty when a simple greeting takes a decade to arrive and a decade to return. The delay creates a fog of war that makes diplomacy impossible, leaving violence as the only reliable tool for ensuring safety. In the dark forest, the one who shoots first lives to see another sunrise, while the pacifist becomes a memory. This theory transforms the lack of signals from a mystery into a chilling confirmation of the danger that surrounds us on all sides. The reason we hear nothing is that everyone else has learned the lesson that we are currently ignoring with our high-powered transmitters. To broadcast is to paint a target on your own back, to announce to the galaxy that here is a civilization ready to be harvested. The advanced civilizations are not gone. They are simply the ones who have mastered the art of silence and stealth. They are the quiet ones, the survivors who watch the noisy children play in the clearing, knowing the wolves are approaching. We have sent maps of our location on the Pioneer plaques, etched in gold, showing the way to our solar system using pulsars as landmarks. We have included diagrams of our biology, our height, and the chemical composition of the air we breathe on this fragile blue world. At the time, we thought of these as gestures of goodwill, invitations to a cosmic party that we hope to attend. Now, through the lens of the dark forest, they look like menus sent directly to the hungriest creatures in the dark. We have effectively rung the dinner bell and opened the front door, assuming that whoever enters will be kind. Consider the concept of a technological explosion, the rapid acceleration of a civilization's capabilities over a very short period of time. A neighbor that seems harmless and primitive today could become a godlike threat in a mere few hundred years of exponential growth. The hunter knows that the stranger he sees holding a stone axe today might return tomorrow with a laser rifle. Therefore, it is not enough to be stronger than your neighbor right now. You must destroy them before they surpass you. This fear of future potential drives the slaughter, ensuring that no competitor is ever allowed to reach maturity. The universe might be a battlefield where the only way to win is to remain invisible, hidden behind the glare of your own star. Civilizations might develop cloaking technologies, masking the heat signatures of their worlds to blend perfectly into the cold background of space. They might dismantle their own radio arrays, communicating only via tight beam lasers that do not leak into the void for others to hear. The silence we perceive is a disciplined radio silence, a wartime protocol maintained by species that understand the stakes. We are the only ones breaking the curfew, walking down the middle of the street shouting our names. There is a profound dread in realizing that the most likely response to our signals will be a kinetic impactor traveling at relativistic speeds. A photoid or a dense slug of matter could be launched at our sun, causing it to flare and consume the Earth. The attack would be swift, silent, and impersonal, arriving with no warning and leaving no one to mourn the loss. The attackers would not hate us. They would simply be cleaning their territory, removing a potential risk before it grows too large. It is nothing personal, just the cold application of game theory to the problem of existence in a finite universe. We must wonder if the Great Silence is actually a cleaning process that has been operating for billions of years, pruning the galaxy. Perhaps civilizations that become too loud are systematically removed, leaving only the quiet and the dead to occupy the Milky Way. This would explain why we see no ruins, no megastructures, and no ancient empires spanning across the spiral arms. The forest is kept pristine by the hunters, who remove any sign of civilization that might give away their own positions. It is a terrifying equilibrium, a peace maintained by the constant threat of instant and total annihilation. But there is another possibility, one that is equally terrifying, but for the opposite reason: the hypothesis of grabby aliens. This theory suggests that some civilizations do not hide, but instead expand aggressively, grabbing every resource they can reach. These expansionist species would not be quiet hunters. They would be loud, visible, and impossible to miss as they consume galaxies. They would spread outward from their home worlds at near the speed of light, converting all matter into structure. They would modify stars, disassemble planets, and build Dyson swarms that block the light of entire regions of the sky. If such grabby civilizations existed in our past, they should have already filled the universe with their presence and their machinery. The fact that we do not see them, that the universe looks natural, implies that they are not here yet. But this does not mean they do not exist. It implies that they are currently expanding in regions far beyond our view. We might be living in a pristine bubble, a temporary pocket of the universe that has not yet been swallowed by their empire. The silence is the calm before the storm, the quiet moments before the expanding wave of colonization hits us. Imagine a civilization that replicates itself like a virus, sending out probes that build factories, which in turn build more probes. This wave of expansion would move outward at a significant fraction of the speed of light, transforming everything in its path. Stars would be encased in shells to harvest their energy, turning galaxies dark as the civilization maximizes its efficiency. If we look out and see stars shining freely, it means the wave has not reached us, but it may be coming. We are like an uncontacted tribe in the Amazon, unaware that the bulldozers of a global civilization are approaching the forest edge. The grabby aliens theory posits that these expansionist civilizations are rare, but because they grow so huge, they eventually dominate the universe. They might start billions of light years apart, but their spheres of influence expand until they meet, filling the entire volume of space. We find ourselves in a quiet era simply because we have appeared early, before the bubbles of these empires have collided. We are living in the Wild West of the universe, a brief period of freedom before the fences are built. The terrifying implication is that our future is already determined. We will eventually be assimilated or paved over. The lack of techno-signatures in our survey data becomes a countdown clock, ticking away the time we have left as a free species. Every year that we look into the sky and see natural stars is a reprieve, a year where the wall hasn't hit us. But the wall is moving, driven by the insatiable hunger of a civilization that converts matter into computing power. They would not be cruel. They would simply need our atoms for something else, something they consider more important. To a grabby alien, Earth is just a pile of raw materials waiting to be processed into a higher form of order. We gaze at the beautiful structure of the Milky Way, with its dusting of stars and its glowing nebula of gas and dust. It looks like a wilderness, untouched and serene, a garden that has grown wild for 13 billion years without a gardener. But if the gravity theory is right, this wilderness is a temporary state, a vacancy that is about to be filled. The universe is not meant to stay empty. It is meant to be used, and the users are on their way. We are the grass growing in a vacant lot, unaware that the construction crew has already broken ground. There is a strange vertigo in thinking that we might be one of the early ones, the first intelligent species to arise in this sector. It shifts the narrative from us being late to the party to us being the first guests in an empty hall. If we are early, then the responsibility of becoming the grabby civilization falls to us, to be the ones who expand. We would be the terror that awaits the future, the ancient ones that other species will fear in 1 billion years. The silence is an invitation for us to make some noise, to claim the galaxy before someone else does. But the speed of light sets a hard limit on how fast we can grow and how fast anyone else can reach us. The universe is vast, and even a grabby civilization takes millions of years to cross the void between the galaxies. This delay creates a false sense of security, a belief that the status quo of emptiness will last forever. We cannot see the wave approaching because it travels at the same speed as the light that would warn us. The first sign of their arrival might be the arrival itself, a sudden change in the physics of our sky. The dark forest and grabby aliens represent two extremes of cosmic behavior, the paranoid hider and the aggressive expander. Both result in a universe that is hostile to the kind of naive, open contact that we have always dreamed of. In the forest, you are shot for speaking. In the path of the grabby ones, you are paved over for standing still. Neither scenario offers a welcoming hand or a federation of wise elders waiting to guide us to enlightenment. They both suggest that the universe is a place of fierce competition, where the weak are eliminated by the strong. We look for Dyson spheres, those hypothetical megastructures that would harvest the entire energy output of a star for industry. If they existed, they would show up in our telescopes as stars with an excess of infrared heat but very little visible light. We have scanned millions of stars looking for this specific signature, hoping to find a neighbor who is advanced but peaceful. We have found nothing but dust, the natural debris of comets and asteroids collisions, cold and devoid of structure. The absence of these spheres tells us that no one in our galaxy has reached the level of total stellar dominance. This absence is haunting because it implies that civilizations either die young or they stay very small and very quiet. It suggests that growth is not the norm, or that those who grow are quickly silenced by the hunters in the dark. Perhaps building a Dyson sphere is a suicide note, a beacon so bright that it attracts every weapon within 1,000 light years. The smart civilizations might purposefully keep their energy consumption low to avoid standing out against the cold background. They might live in the dark, sipping power from geothermal vents or fusion reactors, terrified of the sun. We must also consider the estivation hypothesis, the idea that ancient civilizations are sleeping, waiting for a better time. They might be waiting for the universe to cool down, for the background radiation to drop, making computing more efficient. In this scenario, the universe is not empty, but dormant. filled with the sleeping giants of the past. They are turtling, hiding in their shells until the cosmic winter passes and the conditions are right for a reawakening. We are the mice scurrying around the feet of sleeping elephants, mistaking their stillness for death. But if they are sleeping, they must have set alarms, automated sentinels to watch over the galaxy while they rest. These sentinels would be programmed to suppress any upstart civilization that might threaten the sleepers or their resources. We might be approaching the technological threshold that triggers these automated defenses to wake up and take action. The silence might be the programmed piece of a majestic garden that is guarded by invisible robotic wardens. We are plucking flowers in a heritage site, unaware that we are tripping silent alarms with every radio wave. The concept of the Great Filter intersects with the dark forest in a terrifying way. Perhaps the filter is the forest itself. The transition from a planetary species to an interstellar one involves entering the killing zone. The moment you leave your solar system, you enter the territory of the hunters, and you are removed from the game. This would explain why we see no one. No one makes it past the perimeter of their own home star. The galaxy is a collection of isolated islands, separated by a sea that is prowled by sharks. We are building faster ships and more powerful telescopes, pushing further into the dark with a reckless curiosity. We are like a child lighting matches in a library, unaware of the value of what surrounds us or the danger of the fire. The dark forest theory suggests that our curiosity is a lethal evolutionary trait that will lead to our demise. The species that survive are the ones that lack curiosity, the ones that stay home and stay quiet. We are the explorers, the risk takers, and in this universe, the explorers are the first to die. There is a distinct chill in the air when we realize that the laws of natural selection apply to entire civilizations. The survival of the fittest does not end at the atmosphere. It scales up to the level of galactic clusters. The traits that make a civilization successful in the long run might be paranoia, aggression, and extreme stealth. Kindness, openness, and the desire to share knowledge might be evolutionary dead ends, selected against by the predator. We value these traits in ourselves, but the universe may view them as weaknesses to be exploited. We look at the supervoids, the massive regions of space that appear to be utterly empty of galaxies. Some have theorized that these voids are the result of grabby aliens clearing out the stars for their own use. While likely natural, the mere possibility that a hole in the universe could be an excavation site is deeply unsettling. It frames the cosmos not as a natural wonder, but as a construction site where the raw materials are being harvested. We are living in a pile of bricks that hasn't been used yet, wondering where the builders are. The zoo hypothesis offers a slightly different, though equally humiliating, explanation for the silence we endure. It suggests that we are being observed, kept in a nature preserve or a quarantine zone by advanced beings. They are watching us, perhaps studying our violent tendencies or our primitive culture, but strictly forbidding contact. The forest is not dark. It is filled with hidden cameras and scientists taking notes behind one-way mirrors. We are the uncontacted tribe, and the prime directive of the galaxy is to let us evolve or die on our own. But even in a zoo, you eventually see the keeper, or at least the fence that keeps you inside. We see no fence, no evidence of the cage, only the boundless and indifferent depth of space. The lack of structure suggests that if we are in a zoo, the cage is made of distance and physics, not metal. We are imprisoned by the speed of light and the enormous energy required to leave our gravity well. The silence is the silence of a prisoner in solitary confinement, left to rot in a cell with no door. The Grabby Aliens model predicts that we should appear at a very specific time in cosmic history, near the end of the Quiet Era. If we were earlier, we wouldn't have evolved yet. If we were later, we would have already been colonized. We are living in the twilight of the natural universe, the final moments before the transition to an artificial cosmos. The stars are burning down, and the machines are booting up, and we are caught in the middle. We are witnessing the last golden hour of the wilderness before the pavement is poured. This implies that our future is binary. Either we become the Grabby Aliens, or we are consumed by them. There is no middle ground, no peaceful coexistence in a crowded universe, no federation of planets. You either expand to fill the available space, or you are pushed out by someone who does. The pressure to grow is existential. If you stop growing, you start dying. This is the terrifying engine that drives the universe toward a state of maximum occupancy. We sit in our observatories and measure the redshift of distant galaxies, watching them flee from us into the dark. We feel a sense of abandonment, as if the universe is expanding just to get away from us. But the dark forest tells us that this isolation is our only safety, the moat that protects our castle. We should be thankful for the distance. For every light year is a layer of armor against the arrow. The silence is not a tragedy. It is a shield that has held for 4 billion years. But shields do not last forever, and the arrow is always in flight, traveling through the void. Eventually, the luck runs out, the camouflage fails, or the forest is cut down. We are approaching a moment of vulnerability where we must decide whether to hide or to run. The decision we make will determine if we become the hunters or the prey. And as we debate this choice, the silence stretches on, heavy and pregnant with the unknown. The universe waits, holding its breath, watching the small blue planet spin in the light of its yellow star. It has seen this happen 1,000,000 times before, the rise of a species that thinks it is special. It knows what comes next, the inevitable collision between hope and the hard reality of the dark. The emptiness is not a void. It is a stage that has been cleared for the final act. And as the curtain rises, we realize that we do not know our lines. We are drifting into a deeper understanding of the void, where the absence of evidence becomes the evidence of fear. The reason the universe is empty is because it is terrified, trembling in the shadows. The galaxies are not silent because they are dead. They are silent because they are holding their breath. They are waiting for the monster to pass, for the danger to recede, for the dawn that never comes. And now, we are beginning to hold our breath too. The terrifying realization settles in that we are not the masters of this domain, but the interlopers. We have walked into a room where a high-stakes poker game is being played in silence. We have sat down at the table and started talking loudly, revealing our hand to everyone. The other players are staring at us, their faces hidden in shadow, their intentions unreadable. We are waiting for the first card to be turned, for the first move to be made, and in the silence, we begin to hear the faint sound of movement, something shifting in the dark. It is not a signal, not a message, but the sound of a weapon being drawn. The universe is truly empty of mercy. And the reason is that mercy is a luxury the forest cannot afford. We are alone, but we are not unobserved. And something is finally beginning to take notice of the noise we are making. We stand upon the battlements of our fragile world, looking out into the eternal night, wondering if the darkness is empty or merely holding its breath. The silence we have explored is not merely a scientific curiosity, but a mirror that reflects our deepest anxieties about our place in the cosmos. If the universe is truly empty, then we are the solitary custodians of meaning in a reality that is vast, cold, and indifferent to our dreams. We are the only eyes that can see the beauty of the nebula, the only minds that can wonder at the mathematics of the spiral arms. This realization brings with it a crushing weight of responsibility. For if we are extinguished, the universe goes blind and returns to eternal darkness. But if the silence is a disguise, a mask worn by a cosmos that is teeming with hidden dangers, then our position is even more precarious. We are the naive children wandering through a dark forest, shouting our names and flashing our lights, unaware of the eyes watching from the shadows. The implications for humanity are profound and terrifying, forcing us to choose between the loneliness of the orphan and the terror of the prey. We are approaching a point of no return, a threshold where our technology will either save us or become the beacon that summons our end. The year 2026 finds us at the crossroads of history, holding the Promethean fire of knowledge while standing on a floor soaked in gasoline. We must ask ourselves if we are next in the long line of civilizations that have risen, shone for a moment, and then vanished forever. The great filter waits for us, a spectral barrier that has stopped countless others from reaching the stars and leaving their mark on the galaxy. We feel the pressure of this filter in the rising temperatures of our atmosphere and the growing instability of our global and digital networks. It is possible that we are living through the final act of our play, the dramatic climax before the curtain falls and the theater goes dark. The silence of the universe suggests that the play almost always ends in tragedy, with the stage left empty and the audience having long since gone home. There is a somber beauty in the idea that we might be the first, the vanguard of life in a universe that is just waking up. It would mean that the future is ours to write, a blank canvas stretching across billions of light years waiting for our brush. But this optimism is tempered by the sheer statistical improbability of being the first intelligence to arise in 13 billion years of cosmic history. It feels like winning a lottery where the odds are 1 in a trillion, a stroke of luck that is hard to accept without suspicion. It is far more likely that we are simply the latest in a series of failures, another attempt by matter to understand itself. We look at the moon, scarred by the impacts of asteroids that have rained down over the eons, and we see a record of violence. The universe is not a safe harbor. It is a shooting gallery where the targets are civilizations and the ammunition is kinetic energy. We have survived so far by chance, dodging the bullets that have sterilized other worlds. But luck is a finite resource that eventually runs dry. The silence tells us that the safety record of the galaxy is poor, and that long-term survival is the exception rather than the rule. We are living on borrowed time, inhabiting a period of grace that could end tomorrow with a flash of light in the sky. The psychological impact of this solitude is beginning to seep into our collective consciousness, creating a subtle undercurrent of existential dread that is hard to name. We feel small and exposed, like a traveler caught in a blizzard on a vast plain with no shelter in sight for miles around. We build our cities and our internet to distract ourselves from the void, creating a bubble of noise to drown out the silence outside. But the silence is patient. It waits at the edge of our atmosphere, pressing against the thin layer of gas that keeps us alive. It reminds us that our noise is temporary, a fleeting vibration in a vacuum that swallows sound without leaving an echo. We are forced to confront the possibility that intelligence is a lethal mutation, a trait that inevitably leads to the destruction of the species that possesses it. Perhaps the ability to split the atom and rewrite the genetic code is incompatible with the survival instincts of a primate brain. We may be wired for self-destruction, carrying the seeds of our own demise in the very creativity that allowed us to build our civilization. The universe may be empty because intelligence is a flash fire that burns hot and fast, consuming its fuel and leaving only ash behind. This would make us a tragic accident, a biological error that corrects itself by returning to the safety of non-existence. But there is also the possibility that we are being protected, sequestered in a quiet corner of the galaxy, like a rare flower in a nature preserve. The advanced civilizations may be watching us with a mixture of pity and curiosity, waiting to see if we can navigate the teenage years of our development. They may have placed a quarantine around our solar system, blocking our signals and keeping their own presence hidden to allow us to grow naturally. This zoo hypothesis offers a sliver of hope, suggesting that we are not alone, but merely isolated for our own good until we are ready. Yet the silence of the cage is just as profound as the silence of the void, and the isolation feels just as absolute. We wonder if we will ever graduate from this isolation, or if we are doomed to remain trapped in our gravity well until the sun expands. The laws of physics may be the bars of our cage, the speed of light a limit that prevents any meaningful contact with the stars. If travel between the stars is impossible, then every civilization is an island, forever separated from its neighbors by an ocean that cannot be crossed. We would be alone together, millions of species looking up at the same stars, but never able to touch one another's hands. The universe would be a tragic archipelago of lonely minds, each one dying in solitude, without ever knowing they had brothers in the dark. But for now, the questions must be set aside, placed on the shelf next to the telescopes and the star charts. The mind, weary from contemplating the infinite, seeks the soft and narrow focus of rest. We let go of the Fermi paradox. We let go of the great filter. We let go of the fear of the unknown. We allow the sheer scale of the universe to crush our worries into dust, leaving only a fine powder that drifts away. The silence of the billions of light years becomes a soothing rhythm, a slow and steady breathing that mimics your own. You are safe here, on this one small planet, protected by the atmosphere and the magnetic field and the distance. The predators of the dark forest are far away, separated from you by oceans of time and space that they cannot cross. You are hidden in the grass, a small and quiet thing that the universe has overlooked for tonight. There is no need to signal, no need to shout, no need to prove your existence to the stars. It is enough simply to be, to breathe, to feel the weight of your body sinking into the support beneath you. The darkness of the room is not the darkness of the void. It is a warm and familiar shadow that holds you close. The silence is not the silence of the grave. It is the silence of the library, the silence of the sanctuary, the silence of peace. You can let go of the responsibility of being the only intelligence. You can lay that burden down for a few hours. The universe can manage itself without your observation. The stars will burn whether you watch them or not. Drift now, drifting away from the hard edges of logic and the sharp points of fear. The mind unravels its tight knots, loosening the grip on the problems that seem so large in the light. In the face of the cosmic scale, your troubles are microscopic, invisible to the naked eye of the universe. They dissolve into the ether, leaving you light and empty and ready to float. You are a speck of dust floating in a sunbeam, aimless and content, moving with the gentle currents of the air. The body becomes heavy, filled with the lead of sleep, sinking deeper and deeper into the soft earth of the bed. The eyelids are heavy curtains made of velvet, closing out the light, closing out the world, closing out the stars. Behind the eyes, the universe is not empty. It is filled with the colors of dreams, soft and shifting and warm. You are traveling inward now, exploring the inner space that is just as vast as the outer space, but safe. Let the breathing slow down, matching the rotation of the planet, a slow and steady cycle that has lasted for eons. In and out, in and out. Like the tide on the shore of an ancient sea, rhythmic and constant and soothing. The sound of your own breath is the only signal you need to hear, the only proof of life that matters right now. You are here, you are safe, you are warm, and you are tired. The stars are distant fires that cannot burn you. The black holes are distant drains that cannot pull you in. You are anchored here, held fast by gravity, cradled in the arms of the mother world. The cold of space stops at the roof. The vacuum stops at the window. The danger stops at the door. Inside, there is only the soft air and the quiet dark and the promise of rest. Sleep comes like a fog rolling in from the ocean, dampening the sounds, blurring the shapes, softening the world. It wraps around you, a cocoon of grey and silver, protecting you from the sharp glare of consciousness. The questions fade away, the answers fade away, the definitions of who you are fade away. There is only the drifting, the floating, the gentle rocking of the boat on a calm sea. The universe is truly empty of noise, empty of demands, empty of anything that requires your attention. It is a vast and empty room where you can finally rest your head and close your eyes. The emptiness is a gift, a space cleared for you to sleep, a quiet zone in the chaos of existence. Accept the gift, accept the silence, accept the end of the day and the end of the thought. It waited for you to lie down. It waited for you to be still. And now that you are, it covers you like a quilt. The ancient stirrings are gone, replaced by the stillness of the stone and the quiet of the deep earth. Everything is slow, everything is soft, everything is far away, drifting down deeper and deeper, past the layer of dreams into the layer of pure rest. The mind turns off its engines, the lights on the dashboard go dark, the hum of the machine stops. Silence, perfect, heavy, beautiful silence. The terrifying reason is gone, leaving only the terrified peace of the sleep. You are alone, but you are not lonely. You are solitary, contained, complete. The universe sleeps with you, a giant lung exhaling the day and inhaling the night. Good night to the stars. Good night to the void. Good night to the distant worlds. Good night to the silence. Let go, drift, sleep.